All right, really quick, I just wanted to show you how to do an AO pass. This is probably like kind of a weird demo scene, but I have this blue flame candle thing rendered, and setting this up is super, super easy. Just grab all of the objects in your scene. In this case, the fluid doesn't really matter, but just go assign new material, and both Arnold and Redshift have their own ambient occlusion materials. Just assign it an AO material, spacing out, and then just render your scene. And in this case, I'm going to turn my flame off because that does not make sense to have AO with a flame in it. Basically, it's just going to render how close all of your objects are. And the good thing about this is it's going to give you these really nice little shadows, like right sort of in tight crevices or like right between like the molding and the wall. In this case, I might add a little bit more definition to my flowers, which got like kind of washed out and gross looking. They also render pretty quick. Like this is a full 10 HD or 1920 by 1080 HD image. And it's going to render in probably like 30 seconds to a minute. We'll find out. Either way, comping these onto your scene. Oof, this is my original trashy. No, I don't want to save that. Nobody wants to save that. So we have the base image. So basically, just render your normal image like you would. And then once the, that looks, oh, great. Once the AO is finished rendering, in now, you're just gonna want to save that out like normal. And I'll do blue flame AO. And then you just go and pop that into Photoshop or whatever other program you're using to do this. Just make sure it's rendered at the same camera angle or else it'll be terrible. And just set this to be a multiply layer. And in this case, for some reason it rendered a little bit dark. I could have played perhaps with my settings a little bit. Interestingly, it's actually gone through and sort of defined the edge of the candle, which I do quite like. But I'm actually going to go through and just be really lazy about this and adjust the levels of this image cough. Basically, the goal being to... Why is... okay. Really questionable. But basically, I'm shooting for less general darkening of the image and more just sort of darkening like right in these little crevices and stuff like that. So you can do that kind of however you want. You can see the difference it makes just, again, like defining a little bit of those extra areas. Mostly what I really like it for is the area right between the floor and the walls. And you would just save that out like normal, and you'd be pretty much good to go. That's AO passes. You can batch render these. You can also composite them together in pretty much any software where you're combining like image sequences. They should all have options to add this as a multiply layer. So that's AO passes. Short, sweet, to the point. There are, like I said, some settings in, if you want them, in the shader itself where you can mess with like the spread and the fall off, and that way I wouldn't have needed to adjust the levels in Photoshop because it would have rendered kind of how I would have expected or wanted to begin with. I think the scene is also really tiny, which doesn't help. It does better on things modeled to scale, but that's AO.